time again for another side-by-side trip. Meeting up with Kevin and Diane at Tim Hortons in Holywood, we turned around and gassed up, grabbed some breakfast, and headed out over the highway. Driving for a little less than 2 hours, we arrived at our destination. This place is called the Lakeside at Thorburn. It's a nice little campground, lots to do around here, and lots of trails that run off from the backside of this place. Plans was to do some exploring, but first of all, we had to turn around and set up camp and have it ready for when we got back. Still being early in the day, we had lots of time to do some exploring, so let's go out and see what we can find. As we made our way across the rail bed, we came across these falls, beautiful falls. We did some exploring around this area and come to find out that at one time this place was used for the water supply for the steam engines when they actually came through this area. We found an opening and a pipe that ran right up to the top of the falls that ran down to the tracks, and we figured that's what this was for. Moving along the trail, we come across some wildlife. I don't think he was bothered to see us. He must be used to side-by-sides.
Well, I'm telling you.
Is that a wild blower I see in the bushes there? Looks to be a wild blower. Nope. That's the top of Kevin's head.
Me on video?
Kevin had an idea where there was another set of falls. There was a trail running to it, but it was a pretty rough trail, so we decided to walk it. We were not dressed for this. We found the falls, or we can hear them, we just couldn't get to them. We were on top of a cliff edge with a big steep embankment going down to it. Now there was ways to get down to it. This rope went down through the woods and you could not see where it went to. And you needed hiking gear on to do this, and I don't think that getting down might have been easy, but coming back up
Oh, the face!
Wendy will always make a bad situation funny.
How do you like me now? Oh, Diane! I don't think we had to cross. I'm going through it. Yeah.
What do you think of the adventure, Wendy? It was time to make our way back to the campsite. It was a long day of hiking and trail riding. Ending the day cleaning off our boots. What a muddy walk that was.
Huh?
Next morning, we're up, had breakfast, and on the go early. This next adventure was going to take us down towards Buena Vista. Making our way along the trail, we managed to take a little detour back to an old stomping grounds. This was Clarenville Dragway. I spent many a weekend out here. This was a local quarter-mile track that ran on a runway. Our next stop was down to Dunroven. This is a nice little spot, little cabins here. People can stay. A lot of people travel down this way on side-by-sides because the actual tracks runs right behind Dunrovin. And we stopped here, had ice cream, relaxed for a bit, and we headed on from there. Much of our trips end up just, going where we can go and seeing what we can see. And we came across this beautiful little falls here with a little pond on it. I thought it was a beautiful spot, so we had to go explore. Little spot called Rattling Falls. Beautiful spot. Nice little spot to come and camp out. The falls came in very peaceful there, and the scenery around it was beautiful. Heading on to our final destination of the day, the Trinity Loop. The Trinity Loop amusement park opened in 1988 and was shut down in 2004. In 2010, Hurricane Igor moved in and destroyed the place. A lot of water damage was done, and over 100 feet of the tracks was washed away. Most of what's left here now are some train cars. The remains of the old Ferris wheel is still there, laid down across the golf course that was there. It looked like it was quite the spot in its day. The old Ferris wheel was Ford powered. Quite interesting, little four-banger. You can only imagine the old trains that went underneath that bridge. For over 70 years, trains passed over this bridge and under the bridge. Anybody up for a game of mini golf? This is the spot where they used to run the bumper boats. Still there today. Looking at the old tracks, you can see where nature has taken over. The remains of the old passenger train and the caboose. I think the passenger train was converted into a restaurant. This section of the park was quite amazing. This is a row of cabins. Now you could show up out to the park and you could stay out there for a week, rent the cabins out and enjoy the park and camp out. It's amazing, all these cabins are still there. There's just something about abandoned places. It's like time stood still. You're looking at the past here, and it's just amazing that, nature is just taking over. Well, it's time to head back, and it looks like it's time for Wendy to catch a nap. You never know what you're going to see when you're on a trail ride, do you? Look at this, a flower bed. This was the end of day 2. After a good night's sleep, it was time to get on the go again. We had a drop of rain that night, but it was a peaceful morning. I got on the go early, had a cup of tea, and just did some exploring around the park. Thorburn Lake is a beautiful spot. First things first, we had to put on the big feed of breakfast. And what a scoff it was. Heading out on the side-by-sides, we made our way along the tracks and we come to this bridge. This was in a salmon river. We had to stop here and check it out, see if there's any salmon jumping. Plan was to pull into the town of Terranova and start heading north to a location that was called the Old Mill. I don't know if it was a sawmill or if it was just a logging camp, but it was deep in the woods. And Kevin heard about it and we decided that we're going to see if we can make our way up there that day. There was many of these old deuce and a halves around the island used for logging trucks. It's amazing this one's still here. This bridge was quite interesting. It was shady. And it was iffy to cross, I can tell you that. But if you look down into the water, you can see the original pathway to cross the river. It was quite interesting. You can actually look into it and actually see the roadway. The deeper we went into the woods, the sketchier the bridges were. Helped that it started to rain. It was a wet old day and it was not the nicest day to be at this. We thought a few times to turn around and start heading back because this was a long haul. We worked it out as 3 to 4 hours to get to where we're going, and then we had the same amount of time to head back. So this was like an 8-hour day. I will say it was a bit of a disappointment when we got there. The rain had stopped and the flies came out and they were going to cart us off, so we weren't there very long. There was a lot of growth here, so you couldn't really see. You could see all the slab wood that was on the beach there. It was an interesting spot. It would be nice to go and visit this place in the fall. You probably might be able to see something. Well, that was exciting. Now for the 4-hour trip back to camp. I kept my eyes peeled for old iron. I managed to find one. This looked to be a late 60s Austin 1800. I had to look it up when I got home. But I was familiar with the cars, I just didn't know what exactly they were. I knew it was an Austin, but I didn't know the model. This old car was a long ways away from anything. I can tell you, the only thing that came up this way was old logging trucks. We were wet and cold and it was time to head on. Well, we made it back to camp and it stopped raining and it was time for Kevin and Diane to do their magic. I can tell you, when they has a feed, they has a feed. Kevin brought the deep fryer and everything with him. We had a dandy feed of deep fried wings and chips. Good food, good company, what more could you ask for? The next morning we got up and it was time to pack up and start heading back home. But before that, we decided to sit down and boil the kettle and have a bit of breakfast and just sit down and relax and take your time. There was no real panic. We had the whole day ahead of us. So that's it. Another trip in the books. I hope you enjoyed this little side-by-side trip. And until next time, we'll catch you on the flip side.